Well, just in the last couple of days, we've seen a tremendous amount of changes in terms of regulations, in terms of curfews announced by especially state governments. Not to mention, we've got now yet another strain of the COVID-19 virus in the midst of all of us, which has perhaps thrown quite a few of our plans a bit awry, especially when we talk about travel. As almost everybody now knows, travel to UK is not allowed. Middle East passengers will have to be quarantined, so on and so forth. Let's understand the entire consumer mood right now. How do people want to spend? Where do they want to spend? How much do they want to spend? And, will the developments over the course of the last couple of days dampen that spending spirit? I have with me Sachin Taparia, the founder and chairman of Local Circles. Sachin, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. Your biannual Mood of the Consumer survey indicates that there's a lot of optimism and it's increased the optimism. One of the key areas where people want to spend, apart from home renovation, etc., is travel. And if you ask me, that's where I would love to spend my money too, because especially after being locked down at home for the better part of this year. However, all of these new developments that I mentioned, how do you think it has affected the travel, the mood of the consumer? I know that Dubai was a very popular destination, especially for New Year's, the closest one year. So how do you think that the mood has been affected now? Do you think that, people would have the same amount of eagerness and keenness to travel as they did maybe last week?
So, Mubina, yes, there has definitely been, some impact. What we are seeing, and we have done a little bit of a dipstick check today. The survey results will only be out in 2 to 3 days. But basically, international travel is where I think we are going to see an impact. However, domestic travel there is no change really from a people's perspective. Only about 4% of households in our survey were looking at planning international travel, and I think that's where the big question mark is. So yes, New Year travel, and then maybe till January 15th, till the schools are still shut, people were planning on traveling internationally, a small percentage, and I think that will take a hit, especially some of these hubs like Dubai and UK and Singapore. People might given how quickly things have changed within the last 3 to 4 days, there might be a question on people's mind that even if we go to a location, and what if we are not able to come back, as scheduled and as planned. So I think there will be some cancellations of bookings, and in some cases where people are looking at last minute travel deals or whatever, I think they'll international, I think they'll pull back.
You had also done a very interesting survey on public keenness to take the vaccine, and a majority were not willing. Do you think that this new strain, etc., would perhaps further hit that sentiment? Because now, of course, people are questioning that, okay, now that there's a new strain, will that same vaccine be as effective? So do you think that will further hit, public sentiment towards the vaccine?
I think somewhat. We have done 3 surveys on vaccine hesitancy, and the percentage of hesitant citizens was about 59 in October, or 61. It came down to 59 in November, and in December it went up to 69. And I think it was largely driven because of the reduction in number of cases, which dropped by 50% in India, from Diwali to December 15th. What I expect to see happening is, we have not done a survey after that, this week. But and we'll do one in the first week of January, so things settle a bit. I think by that time there will be, the pharma companies, the vaccine makers will come back and announce, where they stand with respect to their vaccine. Is it going to be effective with the new strain, or is it going to be not effective, needing an update? So I think we'll have more clarity. But if you were to do a survey now, I think that hesitancy will only increase.
Yeah, and we can't wait to see, take a look at your updated survey. Sachin, I would like to refer back to your biannual survey. And like I mentioned, very optimistic. You had almost 48% of the households that you had polled, which said that, okay, we do want to spend in the next 4 months on home renovation, so on and so forth. But the issue here is that incomes have been hit, right? And we have now recuperated from there. Just in the last 2 days itself, I mean, not barring what we saw today, we saw the equity markets crash just on the prospect of there being a new strain of the virus. So there's this whole pall of uncertainty that has been cast. How detrimental is this virus going to be to this entire recovery, which again sort of puts a question mark on people's incomes. Now, what was amazing is that compared to what you saw in August, you saw an improvement in December in consumer sentiment. Do you think that it will perhaps stop now because of the developments of the last few days, or do you think that this the excitement that you noticed when you took the survey for December will stay?
So, what was very interesting, Mubina, was in August when we did the survey, basically, people came out, 61% consumers said that they will spend during the festive season. When we asked them that same question, in December or in late November, that did you actually spend, 66% people said that we have spent money. So there was an uptick, in the optimism levels in the month of September and October. And I think what changed is, and if you look at our savings, survey result and the earnings, survey result, where we asked, people if your savings has declined and do you see your earnings for the whole year, decline at the household level, both of those were showing a decline. But because, of a little bit of confidence and optimism coming in the months of September and October, I think a lot of people basically in our November survey, or in which we released in December, basically came out and said that, the future is looking slightly, brighter. Things may go back to, pre-COVID come 2021. And therefore, we are wanting to spend, and 48% households saying we'll spend 1,000 rupees or more on discretionary spending. What I see, going forward, I don't think much has changed. I think it is a wait and watch, how this virus plays and especially how it impacts India. I think the decision day before yesterday was a very timely one to shut the flights till there is more clarity. And I think if we are able to maintain that and not get impacted as much as the UK or other countries, I think this spending will continue. Maybe what will happen is people will reallocate that travel that they had planned internationally into buying a household appliance or spending money on home renovation. What people have realized over the last 9 months of lockdown, pandemic, is that the home is the place to be. And I think that is where we'll see more spending happening: home furnishings, home appliances, furniture, renovation, repairs, all of that. Appliances, people have used appliances more than they ever did in the past. So I think those sectors should continue to be strong and see some spending in the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, well, that makes sense, in more ways than one. Sachin, do you think that people are a bit more, from sequentially the surveys that you did undertake from August, December, so on and so forth, do you think that they have been a bit more prudent when it comes to their savings? Do you think they are doubling down on their savings because of what we've seen in 2020?
So, we don't see any change in particular. I think what happened was, by default, for the first 3 or 4 months of the lockdown, there weren't many avenues for spending. So therefore, all people were spending on was essentials and maybe, some food products and packaged foods. I mean, and that was largely it. And then when things opened up a bit more and, people were still not going out to the malls, the restaurant, discretionary spending wasn't happening. The movies weren't happening. So I think people had those savings, intact. The challenge was that, those individuals where there was either, an earnings impact or, a job loss, I think in those cases, or, contractors not getting as many contracts, freelancers not getting as many, opportunities to work, I think that is where the earnings and savings have gotten impacted. What people have done is the money that they were spending on all these discretionary services per se, basically, is now became available during the festive season. So they spent there, and they're looking at spending, in the next 3 to 4 months, because there is more certainty as compared to where we were in August. So by and large, savings, largely have declined. But, because of that confidence coming back, and I think that is going to be key, which the next couple of months, if people continue to stay optimistic, and because of, the way that things are, the markets are, hiring, new business contracts, all of that, if that continues because of policy decisions, taken by the government, I think we'll be okay.
Sachin, it was a pleasure having you with us today on ET Now. Many thanks for joining in and just sharing your thoughts on how things have changed on this, the consumer spending bit, especially in these last couple of days. The entire environment is so dynamic. It's left all of us really not bothering with pre-planning all of our upcoming events, be it Christmas, New Year's, or holidays. Things such and that makes your task all the more difficult, but we'll wait by for all your future surveys to understand the mood of the public. Okay, on that note, we will wrap up the Money Show. Many thanks for watching. Stay tuned to ET Now.